Ukrainian drones hit a major oil refinery there, among other targets.
At the very beginning of the Russia-Ukraine war, conventional wisdom said Kiev would fall in just a few days. Despite Russia's superior army and advanced military tech, that didn't happen. Instead, this war has become a massive, agonizing thorn in the side of the Kremlin, and one of the absolute biggest reasons Ukraine has shown this level of resilience: drones. Kyiv is systematically using cheap, long-range, unmanned systems to target Russia's deep military infrastructure and its most valuable economic assets. Just look at what happened recently in July 2026. A Ukrainian drone struck the Omsk oil refinery deep in Siberia. That is roughly 2,700 kilometers away from Ukrainian-held territory. To put that into perspective, that's further than the distance between London and Moscow. It is easily one of the deepest, most daring strikes of the entire war. At this point, you might be thinking, surely Russia has the world-class air defense systems to defend itself. While that is true on paper, in reality, it's a completely different story. While Russia possesses top-tier air defense systems like the S-400 and S-500, they are practically useless in this scenario. These systems are designed to intercept heavy, fast-moving conventional targets like ballistic missiles and fighter jets. But when it comes to small, low-flying drones, the economic math completely collapses. Think about it. A single S-400 interceptor missile costs between $1 to $2 million. A Ukrainian UJ-26 Bober drone, just about $100,000 to $120,000. Ukraine exploits this asymmetric math by launching massive, coordinated drone swarms. They send waves of cheap decoys first to bait and exhaust the air defenses, then slip their actual explosive drones through the gap. Worse still, Russian systems have repeatedly suffered from catastrophic friendly fire incidents. This brings us to a crucial military concept: airspace deconfliction. This is the highly delicate coordination required for an army to operate its own offensive air power, while simultaneously defending its skies against enemy threats. And it is clearly not Russia's strong suit. On June 18, 2026, in the Moscow region, a Russian air defense missile attempted to intercept an incoming Ukrainian drone. In the chaos, the missile malfunctioned, veered wildly off course, and slammed directly into a massive Russian fuel tank instead. And if you think Russia's own offensive drone operations are going any better, think again. While other advanced nations build highly secured, encrypted military communication networks, the Russian military was actively using a civilian U.S. gaming application to coordinate frontline drone operations, transmit live video feeds, and communicate. Yes, they were literally using Discord. Eventually, some Russian military leaders remembered their basic OPSEC training and realized that running active combat missions on an American-hosted server wasn't exactly a war-winning strategy. But when Russia officially banned Discord, it completely paralyzed their own frontline drone operations for weeks, until they could scramble to find an alternative. This communication breakdown, combined with operational leaks, has left Russia incredibly vulnerable. On the evening of June 20th, a Russian military blogger accidentally leaked the coordinates of a sensitive oil depot in occupied Crimea. Hours later, Ukrainian drones struck the facility. Simultaneously, Ukraine executed a highly successful drone strike on Port Kavkaz, targeting energy infrastructure on both sides of the strategic Kerch Bridge. The damage was so severe that Crimean authorities were forced to ration fuel and restrict public purchases just to keep their military vehicles moving. On the front line, Russian tank crews are reportedly abandoning their state-of-the-art tanks simply because they've run out of diesel. Ukrainian troops are literally capturing these abandoned assets, repairing them, and turning them against Russia. Ultimately, Russia's greatest military weakness remains its logistics. Russia inherited one of the largest railway networks in the world from the Soviet Union. While this rail-heavy logistics system was highly effective during the Cold War, Today, it is a massive liability. It forms an incredibly easy, predictable target for Ukrainian drones, which routinely obliterate fuel depots, rail transfer stations, and ammunition warehouses. This exposes the fatal flaw of a rentier state. Relying almost entirely on oil and natural gas export revenues might make you incredibly rich during times of peace. But during a total war, it hands your adversary a massive, centralized target to destroy your entire economy. But Ukraine didn't stop at refineries. In early 2026, Kyiv shifted its targeting strategy to strike Russia's critical maritime export gateways. They launched a brutal drone campaign against the major Western oil terminals. They struck the Baltic seaports of Primorsk and Ust-Luga alongside the Black Sea hub of Novorossiysk. The impact was immediate and devastating. Following these strikes, loading operations at the Ust-Luga terminal were completely halted for weeks as raging fires prevented massive oil tankers from docking. Data from Vortexa revealed that during the peak of these strikes, Russian oil and fuel exports from Baltic ports fell by a staggering 80%. This has created a bizarre, highly desperate paradox for the Kremlin. Since Ukraine is systematically destroying Russia's refineries, Russia is left with a massive surplus of raw crude oil that it cannot process domestically. So, they are forced to export it raw. Who is buying it? Primarily Asia. China and India purchased nearly 90% of Russia's total crude exports in the first half of 2026. In fact, India's imports of Russian crude recently hit an all-time record high. But getting this oil to Asian markets is a logistical nightmare. Because of Western sanctions, traditional shipping companies won't touch Russian oil. As a result, Russia has had to build a massive, unregulated shadow fleet of tankers operating under false flags. Today, over 54% of Russia's seaborne oil is transported by these high-risk, uninsured shadow vessels navigating dangerous global straits. The economic numbers tell the story. In 2024, oil and gas revenues contributed roughly 30% of the Russian federal budget. By the end of 2025, that number fell to a historic low of just 23.1%. Make no mistake, this isn't because Russia successfully diversified its economy. This is the direct result of crushing global sanctions and relentless Ukrainian drone strikes on Russia's energy heartland. But this economic shockwave won't just stay inside Russia. It is actively spilling over into the global oil supply. Because international markets now have to price an immense geopolitical risk across key export routes like the Black Sea and the Baltic, global fuel prices are facing massive volatility by knocking out massive percentages of Russia's refining capacity and pushing refinery downtime to nearly 2 million barrels per day. Ukraine has temporarily disrupted the equivalent of 2% of the entire global oil supply. And the long-term impact is far more devastating than a simple temporary price spike. We are looking at permanent industrial damage, delayed maintenance due to technology sanctions, and extreme capital constraints. Once global buyers and traders permanently diversify away from Russian energy, Russia may never get that market share back. With rising domestic resentment against the war inside Russia, mounting military losses, a paralyzed logistics network, and a systematically crippled energy infrastructure, Vladimir Putin's dream of invading and subjugating Ukraine is rapidly fading away.